Hey family, Ron Spears here with Grown Man Style. One of the highlights of my life so far was participating in an African Rites of Passage Academy for boys at my church in Detroit. Each Saturday, we would teach these young men life skills and African history and culture. If you've seen me talk about my Keys to Life curriculum and my Sankofa documentary, this was the impetus of it. This is where we are first taught. What was unique about our program? We took a different group of boys each year and girls to Africa to participate in a traditional rites of passage ritual with a village we had a relationship with. I've maintained contact with them, and I'm about to interview some of these boys 20 to 25 years later to see just how much of an impact this program had on them. So after the jump, I want to introduce you to Kyle.
My name is Kyle. Right now, I'm currently 33 years old. I was involved in the Kafo and Kentucky Academy program from the ages of 10 to 13. Um, right now, I am living in Washington, D.C. I work in the federal government for the Environmental Protection Agency. I'm a federal agent with them. I specialize in cyber intrusions and digital forensics. And I went to college at Howard University, and yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Cool. Awesome. So the what are some of the biggest memories that you have from the Kafo Academy, and how that they sort of shape where you are now?
Well, I think some of the biggest memories, of course, is the capstone trip to Africa. That's one of the biggest moments that I can definitely recall, and I can recall like it was almost yesterday. A lot of things that we did when we were in Africa. I would say some of the other big moments while participating in CAFO was definitely the fellowship, especially the fellowship as a 10, from 10 to 13, and actually learning how to engage in other African American males, like just how to talk to one another, how to talk to one another about difficult things. So I think those were some of the highlights when I was in CAFO, especially being so young.
Hmm.
And as you get older, you see that a lot of men don't know how to talk to one another. A lot of black men don't know how to talk to one another. We don't know how to engage each other on the right level to kind of get to a mutual understanding. So
And so I guess when you engage, can you give me an example as to how you engage folks now that you learned from the program? Because I mean, we have the nod, and I see folks in the corporate
mhm.
environment. I've traveled a lot, and I see folks in the corporate environment, and you don't know one another, but you walk past, and you're going to give them the nod, or if you strike up a conversation and there's a certain topic that comes up that you want to dive into and kind of find something. But I mean, I guess what kind of examples are you talking about? Obviously,
so
we might be hiding things that are troubling us, but don't want to open up. We want to keep it. I guess give me an example of what you mean.
Okay. So I'll start from all the way from the beginning when you and Mr. Easton, you guys taught us how to actually give another black man a handshake, like how we embrace one another. We come in and shake hands with the half hug. You guys taught us that, so that's the first thing. The second thing, you guys taught us make eye contact, keep your head up, posture straight, be confident. About what you're talking about and what you're trying to engage that person in. Like those are some of the things that you guys instilled in us. Um, and then having a mutual respect and listening. And those are those are like the foundational things, like listening. And I kind of as you get older, you build on those things, like seek first to understand and to be understood. So that's
Mm-hmm.
something that I learned from Stephen Covey from one of his books, but that's one of those things that you guys instilled in us at the beginning. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, listen to what people are saying, think about it, and then have your response, or whatever it is that you want to say or rebut. Or
True.
if you want to rebut, you may agree. So
Mm-hmm. Awesome. No, that's awesome. We're going to get into the trip to Africa in a little bit. Like you said, that was
Okay.
the capstone of the program. But you know, as you know, we met for, you said age 10 to 13. That is, you know, 3 or 4 years that we met on every Saturday morning. Whereas the trip to Africa was like a 1 week experience. So there was a
Yeah.
lot of instruction going on every Saturday morning. And quite frankly,
Yeah.
as the contango or chief teacher, you know, I try to find ways to make the content new and fresh each week, to not teach the same thing. And so as part of that, I created all these different worksheets. You know, it's just like, what do I want to teach this week? And so, you know, I taught different things about preparing you for the what you're doing right now, things to think about as it relates to, you know, values from your parents, belief system, a personal mission statements, um, hobbies and extracurricular activities that can help you when you get to this stage in life, so that you can, you know, have some achievements, career advice. What things do you remember from those Saturday morning instructions that was more geared towards, you know, something that didn't necessarily involve Africa, but involved life skills?
Oh, definitely the etiquette class.
Mm-hmm.
I can recall that one. That was something that in any personal situation, it's critical to have good etiquette when you're at the table. You know, knowing um, what utensils to use, things like that. So that was critical. That's one of the things that I can definitely remember. Um, how to I know we did a lot of things with the young ladies in Kentucky, and how to engage them, how to speak to a woman, how to give them respect, show them respect. um, and that's even more critical now, living in the day and age that we are now. You know, learning how to respect our Black women. Definitely say a personal mission statement that was critical. I'm trying to. I couldn't tell you what it was. I definitely know we did something like that, but I couldn't tell you exactly what mine was. But what that does is it lays a foundation for you from an ethical
Absolutely.
standpoint. So you figure out, hey, you know, what is my belief system? What is my ethics system? What is my ethics? And from there, you build on that as you get older. So, and that's something that I've taken in different jobs. Like, I mean, there's just certain things that I won't do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but those are the things that you instill at such a young age, and it follows you as you become an adult and as you rise into corporate America, and you know, things like that. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Um, Now the trip to Africa.
mhm.
My biggest memory with you, and I know you're gonna laugh when I say this, is the alligator or crocodile.
Yep, crocodile
But
Kafo.
for those who don't know the story, do you want to share it, or you want me to?
No, no, no. I want you
I'll
to.
set it up. I'll set it up, and then you sort of take it from there and add your color commentary.
Okay.
So one of the parts of the trip to Africa. Now we're these are 13-year-old young men at the time, and so you have varying levels of. We're dealing with 13-year-olds. Just think of that. One of the visits is we stopped at this crocodile pit, and these are friendly crocodiles. They don't bite you. They don't, you know. So it's a tourist attraction, so to speak, and
Mhm.
they let you touch crocodiles. And so one of the boys, you know, we took pictures touching the one of the crocodiles, which, you know, it's like it's crazy, but they promised us that these are friendly crocodiles. And so, you know, we took turns taking a picture. One of the boys decided, we won't name names. One of the boys decided to, you know, you touch it, yes. He decided to
Yeah.
put a little push or put a little weight on it, and the
He
crocodile
decided to sit on it.
he decided to sit on the doggone thing, and it reacted. And you just happened to be close by, so I'm gonna stop it and let you describe what happened
Oh
next.
man. Yeah. So first off, I was terrified of crocodiles, and I think I was probably one of the last ones to get close to one. Everybody else was touching them. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess if everybody else can touch it, I guess I'll be fine. So, I'm going close to it, and I'm closer to the crocodile's head. Um, and I go, and I'm going in for my pet, and I barely have 2 fingers on this crocodile, and the young brother who next to me, he's posing for the picture, so he decides to sit. I mean, these crocodiles are very friendly. He sits on this crocodile, and I swear to God, this crocodile's head pops up, his mouth opens up, and all I can remember is his head or his mouth touching my leg, and then me being at the bus. I was so afraid. I was at the bus, and then everybody tells me when they saw that I'm like a cartoon character where I'm jumping in the air and my legs are moving, but I'm not touching the ground. And then
Absolutely.
it was a very scary thing. And like I said, I'm halfway at the bus. I'm lifting up my pants leg to see if my leg is still there. Clearly, it's there. But suffice it to say, I wasn't going back to pet the alligators anymore after that. So
I
it
know
was,
that's right. Now,
yeah.
your mother, who is a fellow trustee at the church, was on the trip with us. If my memory serves me correctly, she was not at this.
She was not.
Thank
She was
God.
not.
So
She was not.
how did she? Did you? I can't remember. Did we even tell her about this that day, or when during that trip, or did we wait several days, months, years before we let her know what happened?
I don't remember if it was that same day. I think it was definitely on the trip. I
Okay.
think we let her know while we were on the trip. And she was very grateful at the fact that she was not there,
I
because
know that's right.
because she said she doesn't know what she would have done.
Yeah.
So it was actually a good thing that she wasn't there. But it's definitely something that even to this day she still brings up, and she still laughs at it. She thinks it's funny at this point now. But for me, as a 13-year-old young man, no, it was not funny. It was very scary.
Yeah. All right. So now that that's out, what else about the trip to Africa that that you remember, and kind of how has it still shaped you to this present day? And of course, what goes on in the bush stays in the bush. So just be
Absolutely.
very, very, high level and generic. What I typically tell people is, what we do learn is respect for ourselves, respect for our elders, and respect for women, and basically how to take care of ourselves. I kind of keep it that high level. And so if you want to, provide any other insight, that's kind of how I typically share through through
Yeah.
songs and rituals and hunting and things like that. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's what I typically tell people about the bush experience for rites of passage and the ritual itself. But I'll just sort of pause there and let you share your experiences in Africa, both inside of the bush, in the village, as well as just being on the continent, on the motherland. Just
Yeah.
that impact on you and how that still shapes your life now.
Yeah. So there's multiple things. So I'll actually start with, before we get to the village, I'll start with Goree Island. So Goree Island, and I talk to people about this even now to this day. Goree Island, when you sit back and you look at that, this was the final place for the slaves before they brought them over to the Americas.
Hmm.
And then you go in there and you look at how tight the confines were, the door of no return, where there's nothing but rocks down there. It really puts things into perspective, as far as where we have come as a culture,
Hmm.
as Black people, as African Americans, or just as Black people. Definitely puts things into perspective. That was definitely a highlight and something that I'll never forget. And actually, when I have children, I would love to bring them to Africa and we can visit Goree Island ourselves. My other experiences were definitely my experiences in Pinyon Village. It
Well, let me
definitely.
pause there. Let me pause there. I'm still
Okay.
your teacher.
Okay.
So somebody had to teach me this, because I said the same thing you did, and somebody had to correct me. And that's
Okay.
where, and I want to basically share that as well. Um, I used to tell people the exact same thing you said, until somebody corrected me. You said slaves. We were not slaves in Africa. we were, you know, doing our thing. We were enslaved
Hmm.
and then brought to America and then became slaves. So,
Okay.
you know, that's sort of someone corrected me. And so I would just sort of offer that from when you share that story to kind of reword that, you know, slaves were put in Goree Island. No, Africans were put in Goree Island,
Yes.
brought to America, and then put into slavery. But anyway, so go ahead and talk about Pinyam Village.
Okay. No, but that's good. So,
Yeah.
because I want to definitely be correct whenever I tell that story. Um, so Pinion. So honestly, the biggest thing with Pinion Villages is when you encounter the people there, um, like they're happy. Like they, you know, the things that seem to trouble us here and the things that we take for granted here, like that's not the case in Pinion Village. And so that is not that's another added thing, that as a person living in America and some of the troubles that we go through, it really puts things into perspective that, you know, we're still in a really good situation. Um, and we really need to focus on some of the positives that we have in life. Like we have our health. If you have your health, if you have family, like those are things that we need to focus on. Because definitely in opinion, like family is huge, and it's not like they they still find happiness, day to day. So those are some of the things that from just from that standpoint that I think that really gave me a certain level of gratitude for where I am and for where my family, all the things that my family has sacrificed for me. Another thing that I really enjoyed while we were in Africa was bartering.
Mm.
So I definitely, and I still have my I can't remember what it's called. Um, I was just talking with my fiance about it yesterday, but I have my drum, and you
Hmm.
know I bartered for it.
Yep.
Gave up some hats, you know. So I definitely appreciate, like like doing that in the bartering system, and because those are things that people did, you know, years ago before we have our current economic system with, you know, monetary funds and things like that. So
Yeah, slaves were traded for cotton and other, you know, types of things, but it's a totally different context here
mhm,
in the village or in the marketplace. You know, obviously somebody tells you, you ask how much is something going to cost, and you know, we have things of value here in America that we take for granted that these
mhm,
folks would love, even like the hat that I'm wearing, or you know, shoes or anything that we can just go get it again. But some people are just like, man, I'll give you this drum if you get me that hat, or you know, this drum that, you know, I want to get 40 to $50 for. You give me that hat and $20, it's yours. You
yeah,
know. And so
yeah,
those are
yeah,
things that, you know, I used to watch you guys, you know, try to run game and all of that, and it was just fun to watch, you know, just
yeah,
going back and forth.
yeah. John Bay, that's what it is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, djembe.
Uh, yeah, Jim Bay. So yeah, yeah, I remember bartering for that. Yeah,
Hmm.
um, that was exciting. I enjoyed it. Yeah, you're right. We think that we can, you know, hustle and like, oh, I can get this and get that, but you know, it's not necessarily
Right,
the case.
right. All right, cool. Now, anything regarding the Bush experience that you want to share, again at a high level, not to reveal any.
Yeah, just I would say during the Bush experience, I really enjoy like the fellowship aspect.
Hmm.
I really enjoyed being and learning, you know, about the people that I'm with,
Hmm.
and just the overall experience. It just it changes everything. It changes your whole perspective on life, and it definitely makes you much more appreciative for life in and of itself. So, you know, I can't go too much into detail, but
Hmm.
yeah, just being in the bush, being in the motherland, yeah, like those were some um, definitely great moments in my life.
So the Bush experience is targeted for, you know, a 13-year-old, the age of transition or um, you know, into manhood. But for a teenager, there are a lot of parents, there are a lot of mentors and adults who think that a teenager would not remember such a huge experience like that. And I tell them, not necessarily. As you still talk about that experience to this day. And so, that's just something that, I mean, obviously it costs a lot of money to have that type of experience. And so you want to, sort of wait until someone can fully appreciate that investment. But, what you're saying kind of proves that, hey, this experience is worth the investment, for
Absolutely.
a teenager. For a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old, I get it. But
Yeah.
a 13-year-old, that's sort of where you're sort of making that transition from a boy to a man. And as a man, you are responsible for your own decisions, and you understand um, the importance of that. So, that's
Yeah.
just sort of a perspective on that.
And I, again, we're keeping everything high level, but I remember every single thing when we were in the bush.
Hmm.
So um, definitely, for a teenager's perspective, yes, this is something that will change their life, and this is something that they will never forget.
Hmm.
I remember everything. So I definitely see a lot of value in recreating that experience for any young 13 or teenage young man.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome. Awesome. So let's pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about life. What I break life up into three stages, as you may remember. The learning stage of life, which is where you were when we first met and were involved in this process. The learning stage of life, the working stage of life, where you and I are at right now, and we're trying to prepare for the living stage of life, where our parents are right now. What were some of the best choices that you feel you made that helped you in the learning stage that prepares you for your current quality of life as a working adult?
Well, I think um, one of the one of the best decisions that I made was I learned to I would watch my brother, and I would watch how he would interact with my parents. And I basically learned from how he interacted. My brother was one of the type of people where you tell him something and he's going to do the absolute opposite. So that's
Hmm.
what kind of person he was. So I learned from seeing the choices that he made and the consequences that he may have experienced. And I recognized and I learned to trust my parents and trust that they have my best interests at heart, and that they're going to tell me the absolute right thing every time.
Now, just for
So
reference, how much older is Blaine Jr. than you? How much older is your
he's
brother than
7. He's 7 years older than me.
you? Okay. Okay.
So just yeah, so he's 7 years older than me, and watching that first off helped me greatly. And just making the right decisions, knowing and understanding that at a teenage age you don't know anything. You think you know something, but you know nothing. And even, I mean, to be absolutely honest with you, even at 33, still learning from brothers who are older than me, who are in the workforce, who've been doing it a lot longer than me, and still taking in information and knowledge.
Hmm.
Um, then I would say, leading from that point, I would say the next decision that I made that really helped and shaped me was actually moving away from home and
Hmm.
moving to Washington D.C. I think it taught me to learn how to kind of just fend for myself and live on my own, and learn to figure things out and not rely on my parents. Um, so that helped me. And then I would say the people that I chose to associate with here in Washington D.C. I went to Howard University, so I put myself around other people that looked like me and other people who were kind of going the same direction that I was trying to go into, and I just kind of aligned myself with them. And being around those people, I mean, they instilled things in me. I think I instilled things in them, and it kind of helped me get to kind of where I am now in my career. So I would say those few things were definitely some of the best decisions that I made that kind of led me to where I am now. And then I would say that the next thing is probably knowing and understanding that even though you know I'm a grown man, there's still stuff for me to learn. I mean, I started working with a brother at my current place. He left. He got a promotion on another job, but just in the 3 months that we worked together, I learned at least 3 or 4 different things that I didn't even know, and I had no clue. I would have never known had he enlightened me, had he
Right.
told me like, "Hey, man, you should do things this way. This is, and you'll get this result." So I mean, it's knowing that we still have to continue to listen and continue to take in knowledge, and I do believe God puts people around you to guide you and get you on that right path. So
Right. Right. Awesome. The because I got to know you so well, your parents are just awesome, and I know the foundation that you had. And being a parent myself, I know you're going to get there soon. But being a parent
that's
myself,
my
man,
point.
I know the struggle of what you were saying in terms of your older brother and the dynamics. As I have two kids now that are teenagers. But anyway, knowing that you came from a great background, everything wasn't necessarily perfect. What would you say was the biggest challenge that you had to overcome during your youth?
Um, Probably just my own confidence.
Mhm.
From an academic standpoint, I would say that I wasn't the most academically confident, and I think that my parents put me in certain situations that would allow me opportunities for success academically, and that probably contributed to me overcoming the lack of confidence that I had from an academic standpoint. So I think that would probably be one of the biggest obstacles growing up that I had to encounter. Um, I believe
How did you deal with that? I mean, because to go to Howard and to have the type of job that you have, you definitely got through it. But how did you get through it? For a young
I,
brother who's going through that same thing right now, what advice would you give him? What did you do to get through that? Man, what
I
advice would you give?
I would say that um, you definitely have to you definitely have to apply yourself. One of the ways that I looked at it was, so I played football and I love playing football, and I put a certain amount of time and energy into football. What I realized was that if I wanted to have that same success academically, I needed to put that same amount of time and effort into my academics that I was putting into football. And once I started to do that, that's when I really started to get success. And again, playing football teaches you, about hard work and overcoming adversity. All it is just translating it from something that's physical to something that's more intellectual.
Hmm.
And anybody can do it. That's the reality. Anybody can do it. And once you overcome one thing, once you overcome one obstacle, you start to get that confidence. You start to realize, oh, I can do this. I can do
Right.
this. So
Yeah, that's a good point. I share my son played football in high school, and his team, West Bloomfield High School, went to the state finals. So
yeah,
he got to play in Ford Field um, during his senior year. But anyway, what I would tell him, because he's dealing with that same thing, and what I would tell him is the same analogy that you gave with football. Of course, everybody focuses on the game. You just want to come and focus on the games. But before the
hmm
games, there's what? There's practice. Okay.
hmm
And before the practice, there's weightlifting. And then, there's weightlifting and then there's drills. And so all of that is done before you even practice, before you even get to the game. And so, if you're dealing with something else, you gotta, what's the equivalent of weightlifting? What's the equivalent of drills? What's the equivalent of practice? You can't just focus on the game. And so
hmm
that's a great analogy. And you have to apply that same, rigor and process to everything in life that you want to achieve, because the goal of the game is to win, right? And there's some
right.
games that you're going to win and lose. And when you lose a game, what do? You look at the film, you look back at what happened, what you could have done better. And then that improves the continuous improvement of the practice, the drills, all of that stuff. And so, no, it's a great analogy. And there's a lot of young folks who, don't get that. So I'm glad that you get that. So let's pivot
hmm
to the working stage of life.
Okay.
Obviously the working stage of life, we're focusing on our careers. a 30 to 40 plus year career, getting married, having children, and the stress of those three alone can take its toll on over a 30 or 40 year period on our health, especially us as Black men.
Mhm.
What would you say are the how would you define quality of life as an adult? When you hear quality of life, what does that mean for you?
Well, quality of life for me is, first off, a great work-life balance.
Hmm.
So, not a job where it's so stressful that I'm spending, 10, 12 hours doing work every day. Something where, okay, I can work on something. Oh, you know what? It's not a big deal. We can come back to it tomorrow. Something
Hmm.
like that. Having that flexibility that when we do have children, it's not an issue if I could take off and, take them to the doctor, take them to the dentist, things like that. So, and actually employ an employer who actually places value on that, places value on people having a good work-life balance and enjoying their family, and not just being all about work, work, work.
It,
So
it it brings me joy to hear you say that, and you don't even have a family yet. You don't even
yeah,
have kids yet. Yet you're just thinking ahead, making decisions on, choosing a career or a particular company that's going to prepare you for that. It's just great to hear you think ahead like that. But sorry, go
yeah,
ahead, finish.
yeah, no, yeah. I mean, because I don't, I don't want to be someone that's just going to get worked, uh, work to work. I don't want to say work like a slave, but work crazy to the point to where I'm not home and then my
Yeah,
kids don't know me,
yeah.
or I'm missing out on critical parts of their development. Don't want
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Neither does my fiance. So, that's one aspect that I definitely gear myself towards when I'm looking at any type of employer.
Hmm.
And then, from a lifestyle standpoint, someone that actually values my input, my what I bring to the table, what I bring to the organization.
Hmm.
There are a lot of organizations out here who do not value their human capital, their human resources, and I think that is an issue, and that's something that I would not stay at any organization long enough to any organization that will treat me that way. Like,
Absolutely.
value me, value what I'm bringing to the table, value the input, value, because the reality is, if you are a boss, the work that I do is what's going to make you look good. So
Right.
when you brief up, so if you're telling me that you don't value what I'm doing for you, then that's a problem. That's a problem for me. So I think that's critical from a lifestyle standpoint when you involve work and what you're really gearing yourself towards as far as a career and, um, various employers and things like that.
Now, what made you choose that particular career path? For the young brother coming up who doesn't know what he wants to do, and like what made you choose that particular career?
So, thinking long term. So, as a special agent in the federal government, we typically we work shorter as far as our career. And in 20 years we can retire, or 20 to 25 years we can retire. Um, so that's one of the things that played into that, because I don't want to work forever. I want to have an exit strategy. So, making sure that I have a solid retirement. Second was the skills that I can obtain from, working as a special agent, and are those skills that I can take out into the private sector. So, what I do specifically, I'm doing network forensics, cyber intrusion, cyber investigations, digital forensics, all these things that are, IT related. These are skills that once I'm done working, in the federal government, I can take that out to the private sector.
Hmm.
And that's what really geared me towards where I'm going now, this path.
What
All the
would you say are the
certification.
top three skills that folks need to have to make it in this current corporate environment?
Your ability to read and write, your briefing skills, being able to basically cover all the high level points in just a short matter of time, um, and then your written skills, and quite frankly, we said three, quite frankly, your ability to network, your ability to kind of, navigate the political and social aspects that go on in your office. So
Sure, sure.
yeah, so I would say like those are some critical skills from the actual work standpoint. I would say just understanding networks. I would say that that's critical.
Hmm.
Investigations is something that can be taught. So understanding networks
Well,
and
explain to people
oh,
what networks, what you mean by
oh
networks, who may not understand what that means.
so basically for every company, they have their entire network infrastructure. So if you can understand, like uh, the OSI layer for servers, when server, how do you set servers up, things like that. That's
Hmm.
what I mean from a network standpoint. If you
Hmm.
just understand networks, and you don't have to be a wizard at it, but just being able to understand it and being able to talk to it. That's all you really need to be able to do.
Yeah, those technology skills. I mean, it intimidates a lot of people, but you've got to, uh, you know, get tight on your technology
Mhm.
skills. Not
Yeah,
not how to code and program and all of that, but how to use it to do like what we're doing right now and be productive and get
hmm
things done. So yeah, no, that's
yeah.
great. You talk about your fiance. I guess what were the qualities that obviously you've had relationships in the past. What made her different? What made her special? What are the unique qualities that said this is a wife, not a girlfriend?
Well, definitely her patience.
Hmm.
I think her patience was something that really stuck out to me, because our first date was a blind date, and then for whatever reason, I kept canceling our second and third dates, and so I'm like, this girl's not gonna want to go out with me again. But she wanted to go out with me again, and
Hmm.
that right just there, like I know, it's like, okay, she's very patient. So because
Hmm.
I don't know, other women would not have been as patient with me. So
Yeah,
that,
you'd have got friend zoned real quick,
yeah,
or
yeah,
dropped, or
or
ghosted, I should
drop,
say.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the highlight, I guess, the big thing that really stuck out to me. And then when I talked to her and I recognized what her upbringing was, her upbringing was very, very similar to mine. Her
Hmm.
parents were they raised her very similar to the way that I was raised. And then her respect, she was very, very respectful of me and towards me. And I could see, and then I also saw the reverence she also had for her father. She respects her father tremendously. So I was like,
Hmm.
okay, yeah, these are some qualities that um, I really am looking for in my wife.
Right.
Um, so yeah,
Yep, yep. No, that's young fellas need to hear that. What wife material is and what it means.
yeah,
So no, I'm glad you shared that. Let's talk a little bit about health. Because I know you don't have kids yet, but you're already preparing for them and
hmm
and doing things in that perspective. But what's your take on health right now? What are you doing to remain healthy? Because life can be very stressful.
yeah. So one of the beautiful things about my fiance, she is a doctor, so she's on me all the time about health and things like that. Um, Most of the time I was working out a lot, but I actually, because of everything that was going on, the gyms are closed. So what I started doing was I started doing the keto diet. And
Hmm.
again, my fiance, being the amazing woman that she is, she started looking up more things about it. She started cooking keto friendly meals for me. And now, since I think I started maybe at the beginning of April, I'm down 20 pounds.
Oh wow!
Um,
Congratulations.
yeah, just doing that. Actually, right before we got on this call, I went and did a 5 mile walk.
Hmm.
So I'm just making sure that I'm moving every day,
Hmm.
even if it's just a walk. I don't have to go for a run. I don't have to go bike. Just go for a nice long walk, and just make sure that I'm eating healthy. And then I'm eating what we tend to do as Americans. We overeat, and they have that serving size on the nutritional facts for a reason.
Yes.
So making sure that I'm sticking to the serving size for the portions that I'm eating, basically portion control.
Yep.
So, and she reminds me of that every day. So I have some things working in my favor as far as like health and staying healthy. So
Hmm. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. One of the things that because I travel a lot for the type of work that I do,
mhm,
which is a blessing and a curse. The curse is the blessing is obviously get more worldly and wisdom. You see the world. The curse is you eat out a lot.
yeah,
And then you have that big corporate expense account. So, it's Ruth, Chris, and Fleming's every day.
hmm,
Cheesecake Factory. You don't have to skimp on food because it's not your money.
right,
But then, yeah, those portion sizes. So I would probably just force myself to eat half of the food, um, and then save the other half for lunch the next day. And that way I don't have to pay for lunch the next
yeah,
day. And then you just cut those portions inside. But that's just a little trick that I used to use, but I still got a lot of work to do.
yeah.
Um, the So the living stage in life is sort of where your parents and my parents are. And we live for that moment. You talked about it. You want to retire. What does quality of life mean for you in retirement? What does that mean for you, and what types of things are you doing now to think ahead and prepare for that?
So to me, it's being able to get up when I want to, not having anybody emailing me asking me where's this report. That to me is living. Basically, just living and enjoying my time with my family, my time with my wife, and being able to travel, being able to just pick up and go visit the grandchildren or visit the children, or just go on a vacation by ourselves. Having that flexibility, having the economic resources to do that. So,
Mhm.
like, and that's what my fiance and I are doing now. Like, we're really trying to gear ourselves now. We're putting in the work now, so that we can have that gratification later on. We can do those things. So we're making some sacrifices for our careers now, where we may have to move out of the area that we're in.
Mhm.
But from a long term standpoint, that will give us the opportunities and the flexibility to put us, align us to where we want to be 20 years from now or 30 years from now.
Awesome, awesome. Now, there's obviously, you mentioned sacrifices. We already talked about work-life balance in terms of choosing a career,
Hmm.
but some of those sacrifices are quite frankly financial.
Hmm.
If you want to stop working, we work to get a paycheck. And so when
Hmm.
we're no longer working, how are you going to financially support that lifestyle? To traveling costs money. What type of sacrifices are you making now to be able to afford that when you retire?
Oh, I mean, definitely. First off, living within your means. In my 20s, I spent probably more than I should, and a lot of that was trying to impress women. Um, but now, yeah, but now that I'm in my 30s, I have my fiance, or my soon-to-be wife. Like, we're living within our means. We're saving our money. We're investing our money. Um, we're really we're really looking at our our long-term plans and where we want to actually like live. So we
Mhm.
definitely want to live someplace where it's probably a cheaper cost to live in, or a place where there's no state income taxes, things like that. So, like, those are the steps that we're, yeah, and again, and right now it's all just planning, because we're still,
Yep, yep.
you know, yeah, she's
You're
she's
young. You're
she
still
has,
young.
yeah, still young, still young. She has one more year of residency, and then she's going into a fellowship. And I'm trying to get another job where it would allow me to move, and I can, wherever she ends up, I can just put in a request to go there. So we're still making those sacrifices now, but in the next 10 years we should be good.
Yeah, no, at age 33, I'm still your mentor, man. At age 33, you're doing awesome, and you have said and are saying and are doing all the right things. So I absolutely applaud you,
Thank you.
and glad to play a little bit of a role in what I'm hearing from you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Last thing I wanted to kind of chat about is just your take on this current climate, what's going on in the world right now in terms of COVID, and the body blow it's taken to blacks, the protests and police brutality, and just, just some solutions. I just want to get your reaction to a lot that's going on now, and what your thoughts are on some of the best strategies. I mean, we got to play chess, not check. Stop playing checkers and start playing chess is a phrase that I always use. But what's your take on COVID and police brutality and the protests and things?
So the first thing I would say, I work in federal law enforcement, and I can tell you that there is a um, explicit and implicit bias that is pervasive throughout law enforcement. There's a good old boy system. There's a I look out for you. You got my bag, I got your bag. And then there's just flat out racist. There are there's a ton of racism that is involved in law enforcement, and I've heard some crazy things. And I'm not a street cop. I'm not a blue collar cop. I'm straight white collar. But even then, even what I do, I've still heard some crazy things. And I think what we as people of color, we as Black people, what we have to do is we have to educate ourselves on our rights. I think we too often we kind of we have these interactions with law enforcement, but we don't know our actual rights, and that's critical. We need to know our rights in the workplace. We need to know our rights our civil rights, our human rights out in the world, and we don't know them, and that's a problem sometimes. I would say from a COVID standpoint, I would definitely say that we need to continue to fight against some of the discrepancies and disparities that we see in medicine. One of the things that my fiance and I talk about is the disparities in the type of care that's provided to women of color, pregnant women of color. Mm-hmm. There's this mindset in medicine where people think that, oh, because you're Black, you're stronger, and so you don't need as much care, and that's not the case. We need equal care as anybody else. And so I think there needs to be something where we actually continue to fight to get people to change their mindsets, whether we're setting a task force or something like that, where they're going in and they're checking out each healthcare system to see how they deal with people of color. So we definitely need to continue that fight. And the law enforcement fight, yeah, there needs to be law enforcement reform.
Yeah.
So I would say that 100%. We need to change how we police people. And I always say, I'm in this career field for a reason. I'm a Black person in this career field. We need more Black people who are in law enforcement. They need to see us there. They need to see us not only just at the lower levels, but they need to see us at the top levels. They need to know that we exist, and they need to know that we're here, and we're here to create change as well.
Yeah, the community policing, just the relationship between the police and the community needs to be, they need to be in the community. They need to be from the community. They need to be, have a relationship so that it's, not just a us, them, or a confrontational one. But but yeah, no, that's those are three big things that we're have been dealing with for a while. And I'm just trying to find some things that solutions, real solutions that can help us to do that. Last question. I'm starting this lifestyle blog called Grown Man Style, and I just want to get your when you hear grown man style, what does that mean to you? Just open question.
I would say grown man style is a shift, and from a high level, a shift in your mindset and how you want to be perceived by the people around you. I don't want to be perceived as somebody who doesn't dress nice, or I want people to perceive me as somebody who has excellent taste, someone who gives excellent advice, someone who is exposed to different things in life. Like, to me, that's a grown man style.
Yeah.
So, and that's where I'm shifting into. I'm starting to pick up some things that are things that you see a lot of older men partake in. So, I'm trying my various liquors and stuff like that. Yeah. So
just keeping it real, man. That's what it's about.
Keeping it real.
Yeah. No, I love how you, you're always inquisitive and looking at the elders for guidance and for that example. And so, you know, me as a mentor, I tried to do that as well. And I tried to be that, but at the same time, just like you know, I was younger than you when I was your mentor, you know,
Yeah.
younger than you are now. Because I was in my 20s when we went to Africa and we're getting engaged in that. So I've been, you know, doing this a long time, but at the same time, just like you're doing, I was looking at you know, the gentleman in the church and the gentleman in my neighborhood, the gentleman in my life and my family. So yeah, all of that, you know, plays a role.